logic of humanitarian resettlement.
I'm watching this.
He said the only way to save the, whatever you call them, Native Americans, Indians, I have a couple of Native American friends, they all prefer the term Indian. And this
They're not here to speak for themselves.
Sorry?
They're
This
not here
revolting
to confirm
woman.
or deny what
Yeah,
you've
but
just
I
said.
heard this from them. You know why? They told me. Very intelligent reasoning. Sorry to
I used to
repeat the
like
whole
her, but-
story. They told me, we Native Americans, what are you then? Cultural Americans. We are not part of culture.
Right.
And then one of them told me,
The reason I put the camera on.
story, it was, 30 years ago in Missoula, Montana.
So both of these people, let's turn this
I prefer to be called an
jerk off. Why do I say jerk off? Right, Mr. Zizek. Now, in theory, I'm well disposed to all Yugoslavs, but basically, what are they talking about? Well, it's the same thing. Trump, populism, all of this kind of stuff. But as they're going through this, and I've listened to so much of this, and actually, the most important thing in what I'm about to say is setting an example. You know, Ash Sarkar is kind of the pin-up. Setting an example. Now, what are these two people doing? They're trying to outsmart each other as they're sat in this so-called conversation. Trying to find ways of stating that you have to be careful of certain political movements, certain named people. They seem to be able to have a sixth sense as to and be able to say what Donald Trump is like, as what his intentions are, what he's like as a person. Now, I don't like Trump, but for a different reason. Now, that sounds like I'm being clever. Now, I want to make this following point. The only reason I've turned this camera on, as I'm listening to these two people, in theory, worthily battle away as to basically where do we nudge the politics. Now, politics, these people, and this man is meant to be a philosopher. All that matters is as follows. The vehicle that was parked in front of me, as so often the case nowadays, a pickup, big bloke's car, sporty men, doing kind of sporty exercises, been to some sporting or training session, baseball cap, rear-facing baseball cap. Now, here's the point. It's not because of any named individual, be they Mr. Farage, Mr. Trump, Mr. who the hell ever. Over the last 30 years, we've had a gradual dumbing down and bolshevisation of our people. I, as somebody who cares about the environment, now, prior to this, I've been watching, Konstantin Kishin. Now, at least he's slightly honest. I'm going to put both of these videos up if I remember, in that he quite rightly says the green climate change lobby have to be honest. That now, if I had a light on, I'd be saying, in quotation marks, the standard of living. Don't lie to them. You can't have lower emissions and a rising standard of living. Your standard of living will fall. Now, that is essentially what Konstantin Kishin and Mr. Anderson, they're all the same, these people, but unfortunately they are the conversation. These people cannot actually even remember, never mind countenance, the following. That what that actually means, your, in quotation marks, standard of living, if you're bourgeois, everybody on the hamster wheel need to keep up with the Joneses, which we knew about 60 years ago, if that reduces by some exterior political force, In other words, you're going to have to either pay a lot more for all your consumables, everything, your pickup, your fuel, your sports clothes, everything, because it's all stuff. It all contributes to climate change. You're either going to have to pay a lot more, get used to a lot less. But you see, this is a wonderful external thing. Everybody knows, all medical science, psychology, knows that the pressure of keeping up. Now, yes, you can say, people started to say 40 or 50 years ago, oh yes, but there's a good kind of stress. Well, that may be the case. But carry on. Artificially manufacture that good kind of stress in some non-emitting manner. The majority of people are overworked, can't sleep properly because they're having to work too much to keep up. Now, if things are shifted downwards, this having to work too much, this things preying on their mind, automatically shifts away. It shifts away from them. They no longer can keep up with the Joneses. Well, in fact, most Joneses won't keep up with the Joneses. That's a wonderful thing. Because here's the point. The man parked in the vehicle in front of him. If I'd have just begun a conversation, now in actual fact, I've never been fearful. I've only had a couple of instances in my whole life, which has included wandering around New York in the middle, lower east side New York, drunk in the middle of the night in the mid-80s. Ditto Miami. I don't really seek that kind of weird, perverse danger, but it has included that stuff. And further places more, what you call, developing nation places, developing world places where you just don't even know. I, for some years, would not dare begin a conversation with Mr. Beefy Boy in his pickup, who probably has been raised watching Tony Soprano and Grant, what are they called? Mitchell in EastEnders. Beefy boys, if somebody says something that's going to threaten their little worldview, and their worldview is my pickup is me. There's been notices going round. I haven't seen them for a few months, but come on, zero carbon. That means people like me want to basically turn you into slaves. No. Fuel should be twice as much as it is. That would affect me as a person more than anybody in terms of my relative income, the way I like to live aside, even though I try to consume as little fuel as possible. But anyway, back to my point. I'm not interested in any named politician, named journalist. I haven't been able to have that conversation with that man there, even as a friendly, I wouldn't dare make a friendly quip. Well, maybe if the Greens get some votes in the next election, somehow or another, the price of fuel's going to go up 25%, and it probably should as well. No, because I fear violence. And I'm not a wimp. In fact, I've become so much more relaxed, brave, easygoing about everything the last 7 or 8 years. Having had to look at kind of potential death 6 or 7 years ago, be yourself. But at my point, these clever dicks, all of them, even those that are meant to be the goodies, on the side of let us not be so greedy and rapacious in terms of the way we are in society, the planet. They still cleverly compete, trying to outsmart themselves about people, individuals who are named in the public domain politically, journalistically, some kind of soft power. That's all they will talk about. They won't talk about that man in front of me. Now, if they had a hall full of that man in front of me, they will run away crying. That's all that matters. That is our society. You can make all kinds of clever comparisons with Rome or whatever. our society crossed a line 5 or 10 years ago whereby many, particularly blokes, but it's women too, and women, if he had a fat, javvy bimbo with him, and I said and which he probably does, if I said anything, she'd be, you want to shut this guy up. There is no, essentially, we already have subtle, but let's call it latent mob rule. Somebody like me, I'm very thoughtful and balanced. I would want to, but I would never go. If I were Prime Minister, I would never impose some sweep. Actually, it's better for people to impose quick, rapid, sweeping change. That's much better for people. It's called fait accompli. You get used to it quicker. But I'm not stupid. You have to find clever ways of gradually easing things in. But these latently aggressive, brutal, bull-necked, 40 years ago, nobody took steroids. Now, many people, it's well known, that really afforded to think about it a year ago. Many policemen are on steroids. Makes you bull-necked, potentially aggressive, in a really nasty way. That's all over Britain and America, and to a lesser extent in some other countries. That is the problem. The latent, I wouldn't dare, I'm afraid, get political, openly state my opinions on we've got to truly reduce everything, cut back the massive stuff by at least 3/4 to set an example. And this fucking woman here should stop talking like she does and bring it back to reality. The bullnecks of our society are the problem. This arose over the last particularly 20 years. The brutalization of everything, although it's kind of dressed up in a kind of cutesy, it's good to watch super violent crap like The Sopranos. And, that's not what's his face? Succession is very good because it's writing. It's not. Now, even that really goes too far. It's brutalization of everything, but just verbally. No. The average bloke now is so poisoned. The average 40-year-old bloke is so poisoned by years and years of this that I wouldn't dare be open about my opinions. I don't know, unless I had a flipping guard with me in public. And even then, I wouldn't do it somewhere where I didn't know that I'm anonymous if I go to my local town, because I've actually experienced the total, latent, horrific. If you're suggesting we're going to pay more for our fuel, for our compulsory fucking pickups, which is how we define ourselves, except they wouldn't actually understand what that sentence meant. They're so dumbed down and brutalised. The mob, who are the majority. That person will get violent. If not get violent, threaten violence. That's our society. I'm not interested in assumed slights about people's colour, sexuality, whatever. The thing that makes the most difference, I myself, for 10 years, I jokingly, as of 3 or 4 years ago, would say, I think I wrote occasionally here and there, I am the most genuinely prejudiced person against person in the west side of Herefordshire. That's actually true. To be relaxedly, sometimes speaking in a supermarket aisle or a small high street, or even a farmer's market, openly about the need to truly reduce our use of the Earth's products and restrain our travelling, a bit now and again, fine, okay? To speak like that, unless you're speaking very privately with very specific people, but I do it, is genuinely dangerous. the few others of us with these opinions are far more likely, were in my last region, I don't really do it here much now, far more likely to be beaten up or worse, run off the road if somebody saw me driving past in their pickup on my bicycle, than if I was black, very, very trans, bloody, gender, black, whatever, much more so. These people couldn't actually care about sexual prejudices, that those they may be sexually commenting prejudicially or colour-wise. They don't care about that because they're of no threat, because these bullneck blokes own the provinces entirely, which are the majority of Britain. No. The people they want gone to hurt are those people like me who they think are going to restrict their God-given right, just like in America now. Britain became America 15, 20 years ago, to drive a big fat gas-guzzling pickup anywhere forever. That is their identity. Full stop. There we go. I wonder if that's actually got me